Hi and welcome. In this video you will be seeing only my hands, and I will disassemble, clean and lubricate this tool. It's made by a company called Beta. Model is 436/1. I'll show it all close up in the video. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. And it's a tool that lets you cut threads with the ratcheting mechanism basically, so you do not have to work with something like this if you are cramped with space or similar. I like and use this, but it's not perfect, and all the other details are shown in the video. I'm recording this after I had done it because I wasn't sure if I will be successful. Never disassembled this before, and so far so good. Now we'll go to the video. Hi. One of those videos where you just see my hands. This is, I'm not sure how this will turn out. It's an experiment. I'm curious and I wanted to record it so that I can get corrections, maybe help, and if I manage to get it working, great. So this is the ordinary way to use these thread cutters or chasers, a tool like this, so you keep it perpendicular in line with what you're cutting and you get the job done. The problem with this, okay, so wear gloves if you can. A minor scratch. It's just a flesh wound. Anyway, the problem with this is that this is very long, and sometimes I get into tight spots where this doesn't cut it. Pun intended. So I had to find a solution, and for a long time I was improvising with different kinds of systems that I will not bother you with, but I decided to pay for something like this. This one is made by a company called Beta, and the model is 436/1. They have models for larger thread cutters and for smaller ones. This is the one for smaller range, so from 3 millimeters to about 8, if memory serves me. That's what I need. This one had some problems when I bought it. It cost an arm and a leg, so about $40 in my country. And what it does is it lets you hold your cutting tool in a very convenient way. So you just unscrew this, put the tool inside and tighten it in place. And that allows you to work in a cramped space. It also comes with this thingy, so you can put it like this or like this. There's a ball inside that keeps it held in place, and that's all very nice. Another nice feature that it has is the ratcheting mechanism. Now it's disabled, but I can press on this and like this, so now I can cut the threads using the ratcheting mechanism, or I can press it on the other direction to remove the tool, and that's also a nice feature. Now the problems. First thing, it does not hold this. This is not intended to be used. This is 10 millimeter. It's from 3 to 8, I think, but it clearly, I hope in the camera, shows how off-center it holds this bit. So here, check this space here and check this space here. So there's less space on one end. It is also a bit wiggly, as you can see. So this section is moving relative to the case. And here you can see how off-center it is, I hope. This is where there's more room, and as I turn it around, this is where it's pressed against, so no room. That does not pose much problems in practice, but it's something that I noticed. Now, as far as the problems go, the first thing, this ratcheting mechanism is not very fine. So it has a lot of, here I'm holding my hand like this. This is the marker. And let's try to tighten. Okay, now let's try to engage it. here, now it's clicked, so almost 90 degrees for one click. So it's very rough. You make a lot of movement until you can go back. That's something to keep in mind. It should allow for a stronger mechanism, maybe that was the reason, but it does not feel very nice to work with, and it's very rough to turn with your hand alone like this. You have to hold it pretty firmly and then turn it here. Okay, so the intended use, it's not a major problem, but it is noticeable. I wanted to make note. So another thing that I noticed is this system. It wasn't working very nicely, it wasn't spinning very nicely, so I unscrewed this cap. Okay, and inside the grease was dried out. Some pretty cheap smelling grease that was almost dry, so I took this out and I lubricated them, everything, and I put it all back together. This is basically what needs to be done. So align them with this spring. They are put on a spring, each one separately, and so you can just align them and put it back in place. Okay, a bit clumsy, trying to not block the camera. So that's about it, and I put some decent grease, decent quality grease, and put it back in place. And I also put some mounting paste on these threads lower to make sure this spins smoothly. So that part was sorted out. However, the ratcheting mechanism feels very rough, and I wanted to see if I can open it, clean it, and lubricate it. Unfortunately, or not, depending on how this ends, they made this to be disassemblable, if that's the proper English term. Here is a small thingy that holds it in place, and so I can press on it and then pull this out. And now let's see what happens. Will everything just fly out once I do that? Let us see. So this is out of the way, and these are the parts that we need. Is it all in the shot? Yes, I think so. So this section, we'll deal with it later, and now let's see how many stuff fly out once I pull this out. I will hold my finger over it to prevent any springs from just flying out. Here you can see it. Gently pulling it out. I needed to unscrew this as it would hit. This is wider, so I would not be able to remove it. So let's give it a try. This is what worries me, if I will be able to assemble this later on. We'll see about that. Now let's try to move it out. Okay, so this is out. One small thingy and one spring. Okay, let's move on. The ratcheting actuator, so it's all aligned with this small hole. Okay, and it is out. Okay, so this moves relatively freely. Okay, that will be a bit tricky to get back into place. Now let's sort them out, how they were in. Okay, so let's see about this spring. Okay, pretty simple mechanism, and it does seem to be symmetrical. Okay, now let us move on. This is the system inside. Okay, so one of these on one side and one on the other side. Okay, let's try to get this. This is the thing how it goes. Okay, put it here. Let's try to pry these out. Okay, that's bottom and that's top. These are not completely symmetrical. They have one side that goes on towards the inside. That's a bit differently machined, but in terms of one against the other, let me see. Yes, the same, exactly the same both. Okay, let's see, let's move on. This spins and these lock it in place. Okay, that makes sense. There is a spring here too. Okay, this is all outer section machined in one piece. That makes sense. And inside there's this spring like a preload. So what I would do is use some very light grease in here and call it a day. That looks like a good option. Let's try to clean this first. Some almost liquid grease, so I would not put anything tacky or sticky in there. And this looks just like a spring to keep this all preloaded. And let's see if it flies out. What happens if I try to pry it out? Will I have problems? Okay, it's out. This thing. This is what it looks like. I could just pry it out. And this more nicely machined section goes towards the top. The other one is like a flatter, rougher section. And now I can pull this out. It has a spring, and that spring keeps it locked against this one. So that makes sense. It's a fairly simple mechanism. It doesn't look like poor quality steel. It looks okay. So, and here inside is the retainer ball. If you can see, that presses here on the tool. So this spring keeps this loaded and works on the retainer ball. So it's a neat design. And now I can also remove the retainer ball relatively easily, the bearing ball, and let's just measure the diameter. Curiosity. Okay, this is zeroed in. Let's see if I can lose some parts. 3.96 millimeters, 3.95. These bearing balls usually have nominal sizes in inches. So I'm not sure what the nominal size of this is. I would have to Google it on my website. Anyways, let's put it back together with some grease and hopefully get it to work. Again, almost as good as it used to. So this is Shimano internal hub grease, and this is what I have at hand. Getting stuff in my country is very tricky. So as far as soft greases go, this is what I'm working with because that is what I have. So I will lightly coat the bearing ball in grease and wipe off any excess. And now let's try to get it back in place, hopefully without blocking the camera. It's not the most elegant way, but I got it in there finally. Yes, what I told her last night. So that's one thing. Okay, now for the spring and this part, let's try to clean it up a bit. So this is a very primitive way, but it gets the job done. No special brushes or cloths now, just getting it clean. Alright, now let's put some grease on the spring. Put some Spain on the spring. Why does everyone use grease only? Spain is also nice. Okay, dead jokes. That was one. Now, should I lubricate this everywhere? Yes, let's do that. And let's see if I will regret it later. Let's put a liberal amount of grease on this. Okay, that should do it. A lot better than from the factory, at least. So, putting this back in. Looking good, feeling good. Okay, so this top section is where it pivots. So I will put some more grease there. The springs are relatively strong for their size, so I have no worries, no fears of this grease getting it to seize or to bind or similar. With some bicycle free hub mechanisms it's different, but here I think it will do. Now I need to find this spot. I'm not sure if you can see it in the camera, but here I need to press this in until it clears the section where this little thingy goes. And what should I do with this? Maybe just to sleep better, put some anti-seize on its sides so that I can get it out again in hopefully not less than 10 years time. And this top section will be lubricated by the grease that I put on the tool. That should do it, yes. That should be fine. Just to put some more grease here where it will, this section here will pivot against this, and that's where I expect some friction, and that's where I will put some more grease. And that's actually what keeps it in place. So let's get back to the drawing board. The bearing ball is still inside. That's a pleasant surprise. Now I need to hold this pressed down. Alright. And get this little thingy back inside. Nice and centered, letting it drop using the gravity to help me. I'm not certified for working on the moon, so now when I let this go, it stays locked in place. Wonderful. After I put this on, it will keep it locked. So that's one thing. Now, let's see about these two little thingies. Should I lubricate them as well? Yeah, maybe that is a good idea. I hope it will not cause any harm. I hope it will only help. So giving them a bit of lubricant. Alright. Now I turn this to make this align nicely, fall into place, so not putting it sideways so that it cannot drop down. If I put the other one, it will not be able to drop down. So I put this in the middle. Now let's place the other one back in place. Okay. So far so good. Now for the interesting part, this little thingy. When I move it in one direction, it lets one of these move freely up and down, so that it can go up in one direction. That's how it works. So these two are pressing. It's a spring, and so when I put this against one of these, then the top spring, in this case this spring, is resting nowhere in the middle, and the other spring is pressing it, so that allows me to spin this mechanism in one direction. If you can see in camera, that allows me to spin it, and when I do the opposite, that works in the opposite direction. So lubricating these ends of these pivots is probably going to help make it smoother, and based on the strength of these springs used here, I don't expect it to cause any problems when I'm working, like slipping or similar. So let's also lubricate the sides. That's how it moves up and down, so along these walls it slides, and so I think it's a good idea to also lubricate the sides, just in case. Putting too much grease or grease that is too hard will cause problems with stuff like this in general, and so it's a bit of a matter of trial and error in the worst case. I hope that I got this right, and I hope that this was a good idea, but we will see when I reassemble this. So now I need to put this back in place and put the spring back on. And should I also lubricate the spring? Maybe it's not a bad idea. Make it all run a bit smoother. Yes, put a little bit of grease in here, this little thingy. Okay, that looks fine now. I'm not sure if you can see any of this from my hands, but I could not get anyone to hold the camera for me today. It's okay. It's looking good. It's looking promising, and I will also put some lubricant here on this. Let's go wild. I will remove anything that is extra after I've assembled it, and let's give it a go. So I'm aligning this and sliding this over. The spring is moving the selector. The direction selector is moving as I'm putting this back on, so I'm holding it with my thumb here to not get in the way. And now it's again moving. Let's push it back a bit. So okay, it is in place. And now I forgot to insert the most important thing, and so it's back to the drawing board. Okay, not the first, not the last time. Okay, so sliding it back. Now I need to also put this in place. Now we can play. Okay, second attempt. So this one has a bit wider lower section compared to its top, so it can get stuck in this hole. So let's see how that plays out. So pressing it with my nail here. Okay, that one will now fly out, so I need to keep pressure. I turn this slightly to the side to allow me to slide this without the thing in the middle flying out. I did that by accident, forgot to think of that right from the start. Okay, now I'm recentering it and pushing it back in place. Okay, it's going. Let's give this a bit of a push. Okay, this one is in place, and now a bit of wiggle. Okay, it's now clicked into place. Wonderful. Okay, so far it looks good. I almost completely assembled it. Now before I put that thing back in place, let's see how this works. It's keeping it locked. Now I should be able to screw it in. Okay, now for screwing out. Okay, looks good. Well, I'll see how it feels when I reassemble it now in a second. So just to clean this up, and this is the, I'm holding my hands to not have these fly out. So as far as this goes, this should also be lubricated, and for this you can use some harder grease, like normal grease, so to speak. So I will use the Motorex 2000 grease, because I get 10% of every copy sold. Joking. I'm just putting it on the sides of this one little pivot. The inside needn't be lubricated, and putting some on this spring. Not that I think it would matter much, but just to sleep better. So that's one. Now to lubricate the other. It looks a bit messy, but all the excess will be cleaned off afterwards. Okay, so that's the other one. Put them on to these two. And now I need to get it into this top end. I will keep the ratcheting system locked for this operation, and so now I'm inserting them here, making sure they are centered more or less equally. These two do seem to be symmetrical, so there's no difference from one side to the other. So that's about the whole process. Okay, keeping them centered, and now putting this gently over top, sliding it and spinning counterclockwise to make sure that I don't cross thread, and when I hear it click, the threads have aligned so that I can start using it normally. And before I screw it on all the way, I will put some mounting paste, anti-seize, over here on the threads so that it spins more smoothly. There's no need for any grease down there, but you can also use grease. That's not a problem. So let's try to screw it on and see what it looks like now and how it feels like. This is the final test, so I should be able to spin this easily with my hand. It works. I may be very subjective here, so there's no way for me. I forgot to do some torque measuring. It feels a bit smoother, it clicks a bit nicer, but it's not a huge difference really. I did manage to put some spray lubricant through this sprayed inside, so it wasn't completely dry when I was starting this video, but I didn't like the way it felt. It felt like it's dry and too rough, and using the ratcheting mechanism. Or I can press it on the other direction to remove the tool, and that's also a nice feature. This feels better, but again, I should have turned my brain on earlier to make sure to test some torque and see, so I can really compare the difference. So the last thing I will do is to clean any grease from these poles that are supposed to keep the bits in place. So I will use this primitive method. Okay, that looks pretty good now. Of course, it does not help with the aforementioned centering problem, so it's still there, and this little kink, that's by design, that's how it's made. But I am very pleased with the fact that the company that made this tool, okay, my hands are greasy, that the company that made this tool made it easy to disassemble it and clean it. When I figured that this can move, I was very pleased to see that. So I like tools that let you open them and do maintenance when it's about this. So on that note, if anyone has a tutorial on how to disassemble this tool by Vera, I'd be happy to see it, because as far as I can tell, it's not designed to be disassembled and so that you can clean and lubricate the ratcheting system. But I could be wrong, of course, so maybe I need to just pry this out, pull it out, but it's risky because it also costs an arm and a leg to buy. So that's all I have for you today. I hope this video was at least entertaining, if not helpful. And if you have a tool like this, I've seen cheaper models that use what looks to be the same design, so I expect and hope that the principle for maintenance is the same. I just bought the most expensive and hoping it would be the highest quality, and this does get the job done. It has helped me, but I'm not thrilled with some small minor complaints, and I wish this were half the price. Maybe it is in some normal countries. In my country it's about $40, so a lot, but I hope I won't be buying a new one in less than 10 years. So thank you very much for watching. Stay cool. I'll see you in some other video. The Talking Hands Man. Cheers.